You go down to the slave quarters, you will learn about Sally Hemings. You will learn about the enslaved woman that he, what we believe, had up to 6 children with. There is a way to both honor the legacy of a founding father and then also acknowledge that they are human and therefore not infallible. And we're losing that nuance when we erase history.
They're human, and they were also human slave owners. So I don't feel any need to soft pedal it. I don't feel any need to make anybody feel okay about it. They owned human people. They treated them like animals. They whipped them. At times they had sex with them. Deal with it. Grow up. It's 9/11, never forget. It's Pearl Harbor, never forget, lives in infamy. Slavery, the treatment of Black people in this country. Let's try hard not to remember. It's not gonna work. Right now, if you're living in Boston, the disparity that you're living under if you're Black is the median white family has about $285,000 worth of wealth. You have around $8. All of these disparities that we're talking about come from a historical head start that one group in this country was given. Now, we can try to talk about that in conversation and be brave about it and get through it, or we can continue to pretend like that and Jim Crow and white racist terrorism and all of those other things, redlining, like those things never happened, and we can stay stuck in the traction that we're in right now. So it's either the bedtime stories that you give to children or the real adult truth that you give to adults.
So can I just ask,
Cello, and you go down to the slave quarters.
Wow, good morning and welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. I am your host, Stacy Brown.
Peace and love. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I'm your co-host, Niele Anderson. I know that's hard to say, but we have those headlines coming out of Minnesota, Minneapolis. There is still mayhem happening right now. And we have some news about Black lawmakers from a federal and a state level. We'll let you know what they're doing and what's happening in their state. Stacy?
Yeah, and I'm like Nancy Wall on that. She says, I'm surprised they didn't cut the segment because that's the truth. That CNN segment we just showed there. I think it was CNN,
Yeah,
but nonetheless, right, exactly. It seems like though they've been doing a lot of that, having this view and that view, but overall, we know CNN. Like CBS is under federal control for the most part.
Yeah, I think what struck out to me is like the conversation of how Black people respond to history in America versus white history. I know it was 2 Black people, but we actually have 2 different lenses on how we see it, because they always want to be like, well, we've come so far, let it go. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, that's why we say Black Lives Matter. You know, that's why we needed affirmative action. Then you turned it into DEI, and now we don't have neither one. You know, that's why, you know, we say all of our Black men are incarcerated by design. So yeah, we have more of a hostile scenario in our minds when it comes to Black history versus, you know, other people. And then y'all want to erase it. So yeah, we have a problem. We do.
Yeah, it's like he said, you say, remember, never forget, 9/11, never forget January 6th, never forget the Holocaust, never forget, but we can't ever, in their view, bring up slavery. We can ever, in their view, bring up Jim Crow, you know, and the devastation. You know, he said in that program, some had sex with some. That was putting it extremely mildly, because it wasn't sex. It was the R word. It was SA. It was, you know, I mean, and it was rampant. Just like now with ICE.
It's crazy, you know, as we, you know, they're pushing this 250th anniversary of America, yet they are wiping out majority of America's history, because there is no America without Black folks that built this country. And so, you know, you want to know why we're so hostile, because just last week, y'all took out the history of George Washington's house to celebrate 250 years. So you want to erase the bad part of George Washington. And it's just like, and so, yeah, we are a little hostile, you know, but I think our first story, Stacy, talks about why, you know, it's important for Black voices to continue to push to protect Black history, but not only that, to continue to tell our stories from our perspective, because like we're saying, there is a difference.
It is a big difference. And on that note, so far in the 21st century, since the Trayvon Martin case propelled him into the national consciousness, civil rights attorney Ben Crump has accumulated a distinction unmatched by any other Black American in the first quarter of this century. Crump ranks first among Black Americans most cited in national headlines from 2000 to current today. Former President Barack Obama ranks second, followed by Serena Williams, LeBron James, Vice President Kamala Harris, Simone Biles, Kanye West, Beyonce, Michelle Obama, and Oprah Winfrey. The list spans politics, business, sports, and entertainment, yet Crump's presence differs in kind. His name enters the news not through achievement tours or election cycles, but through courtrooms, jury verdicts, and public demands for justice. And I thought it was very ironic as we were putting this story together, Niele, and that when you go through this list and you got people like the former president, you got Beyonce and Oprah, you know, they're in it for obvious reasons. If somebody would have told me top 10 newsmakers of the 21st century so far, I would not have immediately guessed number one would be Ben Crump.
Right. Now, this list is from the National Newspapers Association, correct?
National Newspaper and NPA.
Yeah, NPA, Black Press, which is the organization that we represent. So that, you know, just putting in perspective, that is the list where this is coming from. That throughout Black papers all across this country, Ben Crump's name ranks supreme, followed by Barack Obama. And so I think that's important to point out. But, you know, I think based upon just within the Trayvon Martin, if you think about it, in 2013, when Trayvon Martin passed, was murdered, that's when Ben Crump's name began to reign. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about all of the lives that have been lost to police sanctioned violence, it kind of makes sense, right? And then followed by Barack Obama, who was the first Black president of the United States, rightfully so. And since we're speaking of Barack Obama, I just want to note out that he made a statement, him and former First Lady Michelle Obama put out a statement yesterday about the killing of Alex Pretty. And he said the killing of Alex Pretty is a heartbreaking tragedy. It should also be a wake-up call to every American, regardless of party, that many of our core values as a nation are increasingly under attack. And since Barack Obama has left office, he hasn't been too vocal. He's just been focused on his center in Chicago, which opens in June. But, you know, even you see him and his voice coming as the tides of this country are changing. And so I think I'm bringing that up because I think those two voices are important to Black America. It means something to Black America when they speak, and you pay attention because you know they're telling us something that we need to know, we need to be reminded on, or we need to act on.
Yeah, it was interesting. I did notice the former president's statement. Bill Clinton also put out a statement, and folks are looking for George W. Bush's statement now. They're like, is he going to put out a statement? But to the point though, Barack has not been in office now since 2012, so more than a decade, and yet he still makes news when he does stuff like this, we know that he made news during the Harris campaign. There's still a presence for Barack and Michelle, a huge presence. She made a lot of news on her book tour. So they are in the news, not for, here's the thing, not for anything negative is what the Obamas go in the headlines for. And same thing with your girl Beyonce, who's also on this list, who's obviously on this list, and who may eventually be the top person in the 21st century if she keeps going. But the importance
entertainment wise, I would say, entertainment.
Well, I'm just saying in general, this is the overall list, and she's right there, and it's not going to surprise me if she remains right there. But Ben Crump, the importance can't be understated when we see what continues to go on, civil rights under so much assault. They're trying to repeal all civil rights, and Ben Crump, he was dubbed Black America's Attorney General because of his relentless work in civil rights and civil rights cases. And let's face it, all the big ones, like you think about Ferguson, Missouri, Michael Brown, right? That was the top story of that year, unfortunately, because of the death. Trayvon Martin, that was the top story of that year. George Floyd, Crump represented the family of George Floyd. That was the big story of 2020. So it's not, it's interesting. He's not going around looking for headlines, but he's going around trying to be that voice, that person that's needed when there is an attack on civil rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And so, thank goodness for those two voices that are still relevant as we talk about what's happening. And we can't believe our eyes as to what's happening in Minneapolis. You can go to Ben Crump's page right now, and he's talking about what's happening in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, and even its impact to other states. And like I say, you have Barack Obama speaking out. We have another man, Alex Pretty, who was killed Saturday in Minneapolis. And now, Stacy, medical workers in Minnesota who are responding to the needs of people impacted by ICE raids. They're ringing the alarm right now. Last week, at least 3 confirmed reports of ICE detainees being dumped in wooden areas with no clothes, no phone. And one of the men found in the park had a skull fracture. So, and I mean, this isn't unbelievable, because last week we just talked about a Somalian young man that was detained. We heard it come out of his own mouth, with the police sheriff to the left and the mayor to the right. So not only are they killing, U.S. citizens, detaining undocumented immigrants, they're beating them up and dropping them in the woods, and with no phone, no nothing, and figure it out.
Figure it out.
That's insane.
Yeah. The list continues to grow. Someone put out a list of how many people ICE has killed, but what they also put the little asterisk there is that who's unaccounted for is all of those folks at Alligator Alcatraz, all of those folks who, as you said, they pick them up and they disappear them. And we're talking even small babies. This is way out of control. Now you got athletes finally starting to speak up. Karl Anthony Towns of the New York Knicks put out a lengthy statement condemning all of this stuff that's going on in Minnesota. And more and more,
the coach of the Warriors spoke out.
Steve Kerr, and I gotta say, Steve Kerr, the coach of the Warriors, and the coach of the former coach of the San Antonio Spurs. Is he not still the coach? Can't think of his name. Why can't think of his name? But they have been outspoken since 2016 against what they see in this administration. But they have really not held back on what they've been seeing of late. And these are 2 white men, right? Steve Kerr and What is your name, coach of the Spurs, the legendary coach of the Spurs? I can't think if my sister was up this morning watching, she'd tell me because that's her favorite team. But nonetheless, their athletes is now starting to speak up. We know that athletes don't tend to really get too much into it, especially not like the legendary Muhammad Ali used to.
Over 60 companies out of the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, they spoke up as well, and the Wolverines were on that list, along with some other countries. I found it interesting that Target was on the list as they continue to have boycotts, which we'll talk about a little later. But I
there
think
it is.
that,
I'm sorry, I gotta say it. Nancy Wall said it. Greg Popovich, thank you. I gotta say it, Niele. Gotta say it.
For sure, you do. For sure. So I think what people saw and woke up to on Saturday morning. It's just still unbelievable. And it gets worse. Like this time you watch them execute a man multiple times for no reason, and it's just like, who are these people? And clearly, and this is just me, this is my assessment. This isn't, what the reports are saying. This is where we're news and opinions. So this is my opinion. I believe that the Klan has infiltrated ICE, and they're woven into with uneducated people who just wanted the 50K. And it's just a mixture of unqualified, untrained men, and the Klan, the Proud Boys, the alt-right, and everybody else is in there. And it's all by design. It's all by design, because I don't believe that all of those ICE agents know the plan of the Klan. That's what makes it so brilliant on their behalf, because they can do that and hide behind the mask and the banner of the federal government. And I think what Tim Walsh said yesterday, it was very stern, but it was also polite. But he did call Donald Trump despicable. And he just, it's just like it's overwhelming, the trauma, that you don't even realize something like what happened to Alex Pretty has on you. That was devastating to wake up to that news on Saturday, and to think about the people that we've had on the show. Toussaint Morrison, think of Georgia Ford, and it's just like, she just posted right now what happened overnight. It is unbelievable. It is like these foreign countries that you see, like in Afghanistan, or are we on the brink of a Gaza? The way that they're treating us now, like what's in store for America? And I just think that the alarm is getting louder and louder. And when you have voices like Barack Obama and Michelle Obama beginning to speak, because they've been silent and letting all this roll, it lets you know our country is in a state of emergency, Stacy.
Yeah. Dr. Nicole says she would agree with what you said. I'm totally in agreement with Dr. Nicole saying, yeah, she said, I would agree, although I would not say infiltrated, more like recruited into it. I think they were recruited into it. I think that Steve Bannon, you have to remember that they have been preparing for this before Trump was in office, through Bart Bright. They have, this is Steve Bannon's plan. Right.
Stephen Miller worked for Steve Bannon at Bart Bright when they were running that racist publication on social media. And so this is, if you go back and listen to Steve Bannon, they've been planning for this all along.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Proud Boys, the president of the Proud Boys, it's already been reported that he's a member of ICE.
Right.
This is by design. They've been talking about this.
Right. Absolutely.
And they have their recruits. They have the Klan. They've been waiting. The Klan been waiting. And like I say, we don't know who goes into that White House, because they don't tell us anymore.
We know
it by design. And they sit at the table with them crackers. They sit at the table with that Klan. They sit at the table with alt-right. They sit at the table with all of them. And those people go give their members marching orders.
Yeah. And that's another reason why what you just said, another reason why it is despicable that some Black and brown people say that they're down for this stuff. they're gonna be down. They're gonna be down and dead soon enough. They continue to say they're down for this, that, oh, he's our guy. Okay, he's your guy. Francis Webb says, why do whites have so much hate, jealousy, and fear? First American Indians, Jewish Holocaust, Japanese camps, American slavery, Hispanic detainees, Islamophobia. Francis says, pray for our country. You have folks, Francis, obviously, that has so much hate. And I think that history has shown why. The answer to that question, Francis. I think people like Malcolm X have answered that question. I think MLK has answered that question. Certainly Louis Farrakhan has answered that question. People like that have been bold about answering that question. James Baldwin has answered that question. They're just my favorite explanation is that the hate comes from the fear of what they did to Black people in general in this country, that if Black people ever got to power, that Black people would do the same to them. I think it comes down to that. Mm-hmm. And so that hate and that fear that they have, and that hate, the fear and all that is just, it's not even justified. They justify it in their minds. Big Black man, scary Black woman, angry Black woman. They do all that in their minds. Mm-hmm. We pretty much mind our business until it's time not to mind our business.
And I think that's what's been happening since he got in office. And even when you look at the makeup of the protests, it's like, we need to see white people. We need to see white people come outside, and thank God for white allies within the Black struggle. But we need to see white people see that it is happening to them as well. And it's unbelievable as you look at the news how, white people are in shock, but we need more. We need more of y'all to come out. Because what happened to Renee Good, what happened to Alex Pretty, and we can't forget what happened to our brother here in LA.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He was the first. He was the first out of these three. And so we need more white folks to come up. We need more white folks to step up, to pull up, and to start speaking up. Because because we know Black folks, this is what Black folks do know. For all y'all white people in the chat chiming in, what we do know is that if y'all don't care about a white man and a white woman, we damn sure already know what y'all did to us. Okay, so we know what time it is.
Yeah, exactly.
We know what time it is. And so we need more white folks. Go tell, I know y'all on the, but we need more white folks to step up to this.
Well, and Shonda says it too. She says, plus Anglo-Saxon are a dwindling majority. Gosh, I just lost her comment. But nonetheless, she said, yeah, they're the majority. And by 2050, they will no longer be the majority demographic in America. Many Anglo-Saxons can't handle that when their beliefs are built on lies. That's also a big motivator in all of this too. That whole, you're going to be the minority by 20 whatever. We've seen that on the campaign trail. They talked about it openly.
Right.
So, and then here's another reason why what's going on in Minneapolis is going on. It was laid bare this weekend. It's about control, folks. Staying in power. Trump, with his $400 million ballroom at the White House, has absolutely zero plans to leave. And this is just more concrete proof. The proof being that Pam Bondi said ICE will leave Minnesota if the state turns over its election data and voter rolls. And then you listen to Ted Cruz going ham on a recorded conversation trashing the administration and telling Trump and J.D. Vance that they will be impeached if Democrats win the House and Senate, and they will be put in jail. So the stakes are even higher. So that intertwines, Niele. They want to take the voter rolls, the elections data and everything, so that they can control the election. Because Ted Cruz is telling them And I'm sure he's not the only one telling him. He just happened to be, because he's the biggest blunder of them all, to be caught on tape telling them this is what's going to happen if they don't steal the election.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the makeup of Minnesota. And Simone Sanders was talking about this last night. But Minnesota is led by a Democratic governor, the Attorney General, the Secretary of State. When you look at the Capitol and the state legislators, Democrats lead by 1, right? All of this happened in 2024. Okay. And so Democrats are in leadership, and they hold the state Capitol legislature by one Democrat. And so this, to your point, it's all about power. This state right here will be a powerful state for them to take control over, because it's all led by Democrat. And looking at the way that they're doing this state and these twin cities right now, they're probably going to lose more seats at the state legislation. And so we know Kathy Hochul has entered the governor's race. She's filed her papers. And so they're probably looking for some. But this, to your point, it's all about power, because this state is made up and led by Democrats.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why they're targeting. One reason they're targeting Democrat led cities. And folks, this is not about Democrat and Republican for us. It's for you guys who typing that stuff. It's not about it for us. This is about humanity. Republican lawmakers. This is according to Jack Hopkins, a former Republican leader. He said this, Niele, and many agreed with him. He says Republican lawmakers didn't stick with Donald Trump because they were hypnotized or terrified or somehow helpless. He said they stuck with him because he's one of them. He says Trump didn't corrupt a moral party. He exposed a corrupt one. If Trump were merely embarrassing, reckless, or rude, they would have dumped him years ago. He says politicians abandon liabilities fast. What they don't abandon are mutual liabilities. And Trump normalized behavior that many of them were already guilty of. Ethical shortcuts, financial murkiness, abuse of power, contempt for oversight, lying as policy. And he says for a lot of Republicans in Congress, Trump isn't the risk. Accountability is the risk. Trump absorbs attention like a sponge, he said, while everyone else is watching his circus. Others operate quietly in the shadows. He goes on and on. It's a long statement he put out. He says he's not a distraction. He's a shield, a very useful one. I thought, he really breaks down when folks ask, well, why isn't somebody in the GOP standing up? You see Marjorie Taylor Greene now standing up, or appearing to stand up anyway, but she still voted along with the laws and things that he wanted, the diabolical law. She still went along with it.
I think, but that's what makes her such a great person to say those types of things. And we need to see more Republicans doing that. She also said last night, or just yesterday, that we're on the brink of a civil war. And she told all of those people in the chat that are tooting and pooting for Donald Trump, she said that he's leading us into a civil war. That's what she was telling her white comrades. So we need more people like her to speak up. But, and speaking of a civil war, according to experts at the University of Pennsylvania, they say we have officially entered the first phase of the Civil War of the United States. And I truly believe that. I think it started with Renee Good.
Yeah.
It really started with Keith Porter. But
I was going to say, I think it started before that, but
but started to visually see it. Okay. And they say it's not a civil war split by territory, but by ideology, which I think, I think at the same time, when we look at the Civil War against the North and the South, I think it was both. It was territory and ideology, because one said they wanted slavery and the other one said no, right? To a certain point. So, but it's about ideology. This is definitely about the way that Trump and his clan see the way they want America to be. But yeah, we need more Marjorie Taylor Greenes within the Republican Party. And I think she's the best one because she was so vocal. and we didn't like her the most. So to see they're one of their beloveds, not just a vote, but a face and a name, say these types of things. Who's next? Come on, who's next?
D Jenkins 2720 posts that people have to be strong. Jenkins says we can't fold. We have children, and I refuse to leave this messed up situation to them. This is not America, and democracy will not die. Oh, somebody's standing up.
Yeah, but it's sad that kids can't go to school today in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities. See, we're being she's talking to the white folks. Mm-hmm. She's talking to the base.
And I think, Niele, I don't think that they calculated that white folks were going to be as upset. A good faction of white folks were going to be upset and take the action that some of them are now taking. We've seen the streets full of white protesters in a number of states.
They need more. They need more.
And it's coming. And it's coming. But I guarantee you, Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller and Russell Vought and people like that did not calculate that there would be so many of people who look like them who are not for this. I guarantee they didn't calculate.
Maybe Russell Vought, Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller don't give a shit. They know they know about the liberals. They know about the liberal whites. So that's what they call them. Not just white people, but they call them the liberal. They knew, and those are the ones. That's why those are the ones that are being killed. Because they are supporting brown people of color. Those are the enemy too. They anticipate them and they sending a message to them. See, we know. They sending a message to them. Y'all liberals, come outside if you want to.
Well, the Mr. Pretty was not. He was minding his business, put it that way, and he was somebody who was taking care of veterans. They gave him a really nice, for his family anyway, a nice send-off at the hospital the other day. They had a flag draped coffin, and the nurses and personnel there was saluting him as they wheeled him past. And all of the reports from this guy that you hear on this guy, and somebody said, I think it was Carville, who said that the White House was digging, scrambling to find some dirt on this guy, and they have not been able to do so.
No, they can't. And I think it's important to note out that the NRA has spoken against the Trump clan and this administration on how they handled it, because the Second Amendment right gives you the right to bear arms. And so the whole spin that White House put out, the NRA is pissed about it. And they want a retraction from the Trump administration, because they say you have the right to bear arms and you are not supposed to be making an example out of somebody exercising their Second Amendment right. So now they didn't. Now I bet you they didn't anticipate the NRA.
Yeah, now that is interesting too. When you said the NRA, I said that's a game changer.
Yeah,
that's a potential game changer. Yeah. Oh yeah, because if they start to go the other way, then this situation for them is in trouble. For folks who support this nonsense, it's so I still can't wrap my head around so many evil people who sit on the sidelines and say, yeah, this is good. We don't need illegals or whatever. Illegal people should be dealt with the way past presidents, past administrations dealt with. Humanely. Okay, if they're here illegal and you have cause to deport.
But the reason why the term undocumented, it's not even illegal, it's undocumented.
Undocumented.
And the reason why you use the term undocumented is because they're able to get a driver's license. They're able to get a social security card. They're able to work and get a paycheck and have a bank account. So they're able to function in the United States, which is a government thing, because the state and the governments are allowing this to happen. So they're here. They're here. That's why they're not illegal. They're undocumented.
Undocumented.
Because they're able to get things. They can get SNAP. That's a government. and that is a state thing. So they're undocumented. They're not illegal. They're here. You know they're here. They just don't have their paperwork.
You have someone write this, which is shamefully true. There are some people who will let Donald Trump SA their mothers, and they still vote for him. They still push, and that's, hey, that's unfortunate. That this is not, again, Trump is the face of the circus, but it's really sad. It's sad to see folks being so inhumane. Just there's humane ways that this could have been done, and I think a lot of folks would not have had a problem with Donald Trump's administration doing undocumented or if you want to go to the illegal side in a just way. In a just way, you could do that if these people are a problem.
Obama did it. Obama did it. Obama did
in a humane way.
He deported more people than any president.
Right.
Okay, so there is a way for it to be done, but Donald Trump is living up to his daddy. And then you have these privatized prisons that are really profiting tremendously off of what's happening. And they're saying that this is the biggest cash day they've ever had. And so they're leaning into this and they're funding it. And so it's inhumane, but it's the white boy's way.
And before you say it, Greer, I got to point out, D. Jenkins said it best, and I saw these statistics too, and I want you to chime in, Greer, because it's not even about undocumented or illegal. 73% of the detainees by ICE are American. 73%. Go ahead, Greer. I'm sorry.
Well, I really was just going to say that I think that part of the problem for all of us, right, is that we're still trying to have a normal conversation about what's going on, and by talking about undocumented, aliens or whatever, undocumented people, and act as if that this is the real issue.
Right.
Oh, that's the distraction, right? It just is. And the distraction from, being able to establish martial law, in this country, and the distraction from just the straight up lawlessness that's happening from top to bottom in our government. Right. And so I feel as if that this conversation around us saying, yeah, they could do it, but no, that's really not the goal here. We said at the top of the show, their goal is to gain control. Everything that we hear about, from TikTok to whatever, anything that they're getting involved in, it's about maintaining people's data, right? And they're distracting us with conversations about whether or not someone is here legally or illegally. Everybody is here illegally.
Break it down.
You know what I mean? It's just an absurd conversation. And I think that, we're still wanting to try to talk about this government and the things that they're doing in a normal way. And it just isn't. We are at war. It has happened. And I'm not suggesting that I have the answers on how to get out of it. I think that people from the most basic level, when their backs up against the wall, they fight. And when you're in a fight, people die. And not to put people in, try to pinhole people. But the reality is, when I think about history, right, the history of white men, their goal is always to control everything, right? To control, to dominate, to be the only one, to be superior, to say who has the right to live and who doesn't have the right to live, and to create stories around, why someone doesn't have the right to live. And then the rest of us go back and repeat it. And that's what I'm saying about this whole conversation around, documented, undocumented. They don't give a damn. They don't care about breaking the law.
But it does matter to those that they're calling those names to. It's just like the N-word. You know, it's
No,
like, yeah.
absolutely
So,
it does.
so
But
that's
what
what
I'm
I'm saying.
but
It
if
matters.
But if 73% of Americans of American citizens are being detained, it ain't a real it
Where's
ain't
that
real.
statistic? Is that 73? Is that statistic
I've
right?
seen that. I've seen that reported in
I,
several places.
right,
70
but we
around
also know,
73%. Yeah.
yeah, but we know that American citizens are being harassed and detained,
Well, two of them
right?
died. Yeah, two of them were
Yeah, right.
murdered.
Yeah, so we're talking about the ones that we just talking about them. What about the ones we not talking about that we don't know anything about? Right. I mean, that's not to say that there isn't there isn't this question to pick up people that have been identified as undocumented, but it doesn't matter. It's it's about creating fear in this country. And the more fear that we see, I'm thinking the same thing. Like, I don't even want to, I don't want to even say certain things around anybody, black, white, whoever it is, because you don't, it's a dangerous time to even speak. So I just think that, like, there's a control thing that's happening here, and the undocumented conversation is totally some BS. And
but I disagree with that, because it depends on who you talk to, because that means something to people who are here in this country, whether they're from Caribbean, African, or Mexican descent.
That's not what I'm saying. I understand that there are people from those places. What I'm trying to say is that it's a distraction. It's a fake conversation, is what I'm simply saying.
It's not,
because
it's like saying, but Greer, what I'm saying is, I think that words matter. And when you don't want to be called the N-word with an ER, so don't call me an illegal alien.
No, I'm not. Okay. No, I'm not talking about what you call anyone. Okay. What I'm saying is that when we have these conversations, like, we'll say, we might say right now, after everything that we've seen, that listen, we have a problem with undocumented, undocumented
immigrants
people in this country. Right. And what I'm trying to say is that middle ground is what they're counting on. But the reality is, based on what we're seeing and what's happening, it doesn't matter. It's just
okay. Well, I'm saying it's relative. I think we disagree. We could just agree to disagree, because I think it's relative. I think it's all relative as to how they're framing people in America. I think it's relative to the fact of how they are trying to frame this whole situation. So I think it's relative. You don't. So it's fine.
I'm speaking about framing. Right. And I'm saying that the way that this framing, how things are being framed, is being used against us, because psychologically, if you're already on this thing of you don't want someone who's undocumented to get a job or to have access to health care, right? Then we're sitting here talking about that as these people and American citizens are being murdered in the street, when that's not really the people who are doing this murdering. That's not really the thing that's driving them. This is what they want to do, but they're using this language to get us, talking about, stir it up. That's all I'm saying. I'm not. So it's just the framing. I don't disagree with what you're saying, that when it matters to them and who you being called, like, but listen. I when I remember my daughter came home. I always tell the story. The first time she was ever called the N-word. Okay. I let her cry. Right. Because after she finished crying, I said, your father's been called it. You know that. I've been called it. Your grandmama's been called that. It's the low hanging fruit. Don't let him take you off your square. And I've told my children that, over and over again. And so what I'm saying is that language, and then the things and because of how they frame things, has got us confused when everybody's a target. That's all.
Yeah, everybody's a target. Exactly.
Yeah, everybody's a target.
And part of the point too, I think Greer is making too, is that in some ways it's a distraction from what they're really trying to accomplish. And part of that is what they already have accomplished. When you look at the World Bank and of course the Federal Reserve here, the question becomes, where's the money at, right? A former World Bank president sounded the alarm over the weekend. He revealed that the Federal Reserve has lost over $1 trillion and counting, turning it into nothing more than a massive hedge fund for the rich and powerful. He claims that the Fed is borrowing money from banks at a 5.4% interest rate, then pouring it into government bonds, creating the illusion that the government's financial situation is better than it actually is. And he warned that this scheme isn't just limited to the United States. It's happening across central banks worldwide. Remember, Donald Trump wants to fire Lisa Cook and Jerome Powell, as he and his family continue to rake in billions of dollars, and they want your money to act as Trump and his cronies' private slush fund. So there is another one of the many reasons why they run in all of these distractions. According to this former World Bank official, they're stealing in front of your face.
Right,
they're breaking you. And your money in the bank is not, he's telling you, it's not that safe, folks.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember Greer, and speaking of Greer, I remember she talked about that some time ago. Like, your money in the bank, and we know RNG has had his say on that matter as well, with money in the banks. It's not, it's shaky.
Right, for 100%. And we know that the new World War III is not going to be so much with, Pearl Harbors and things. It's going to be technology. One of the things that they're talking about attacking is our grid. And everything, that means our phones, that means our banking systems, that means our electricity. And so, that is one of the things that they're going to attack. There was a movie on Netflix with Angela Bassett, Robert De Niro. I can't think of the name of it, but Angela Bassett was the president, and they attacked the banking system. But it was somebody from the government that did it, from our government. But the chaos that happened when people were not able to get into their bank accounts within 24 hours, it was total mayhem in the United States. And so you have to think of all of these things. People, our foreign adversaries, they could be looking at, this is a weak time for America. And they already see that there's turmoil on our soil. They could escalate it.
Yeah.
By hitting the banking system. And I know this, but this is relative too. When we talk about it's not stable for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is because we are so reliable on technology now.
Yeah. And Nancy Wall brings out this point. I saw this story the last week plus Jamie Dimon or whatever from JP Morgan Chase, the head of JP Morgan Chase, told Trump he needs to back up. So now Trump, of course, is suing JP Morgan Chase.
$4 billion. He's suing a $4 billion.
Yeah. That seems to be his favorite figure, billion, because he sues everybody for billions.
Yeah. The name of the movie, it's on Netflix, is called 0 Day, and it does star Angela Bassett and Robert De Niro. It's called 0 Day. It's worth a look at. It's relative to everything we're talking about. It's called 0 Day on Netflix.
Yeah. And folks, if you know that last year, the Target boycott was really in full steam, and for many it still is. A Target store just in the last few days, they've been in the last few days in Minneapolis and in DC. They have been a hotbed of activity because of the company's alleged ties to Homeland Security and ICE, and supporting domestic terror against Black folks and other minorities. In light of ICE terrorizing Minnesota, the DC residents, there was a huge, at one of the Target stores in DC, a huge demonstration inside Target. They want ICE, Target, and to separate any relationship it has with ICE and Homeland Security. Target, I will say this, they have said, and I have personally spoken to representatives of Target, higher ups at Target, and they have said, they have claimed that it is just not true, that they don't support any of that. However, there are folks like Reverend Jamal Bryant and others who say otherwise. Target is still for lack of a better term, a target for Black folks.
Well, it's beyond Black folks now, because you got the white reverends and pastors. But we're coming up on the actual anniversary of the Target strike, which is February 1st. It started on a cold winter day in Minneapolis with Dr. Nakima Levy Armstrong and two other individuals. And they're the ones that really started this Target boycott. And Reverend Jamal Bryant. But this is why Target is so important, which started almost a year ago, is because it sits less than a mile away from where George Floyd was murdered. And there is record that Nakima Levy Armstrong, she shared with us just about a year ago about how Target funds the city attorney's office and they work with the police department. And so that's why Target was originally targeted for this boycott, because of those reasons. And so you saw, even what you're talking about in DC, just a few days earlier, you had 20,000 strong at a Target center in Minneapolis. And so now this isn't just a something that it started. I think it's important to know that the Target boycott started on February 1st for Black History. And it started there. And then Jamal Bryant and them came on. And look at it now. It has taken a life of its own. I mean,
and it's important.
You had white pastors flood the corporate offices. I'm not talking about a Target, but the corporate offices. About 200 of them singing hymns. White, Black, red, everybody. So this Target boycott, I'm happy that Nakima is able to see this.
It's important, and I'm glad you, and I figured you would anyway, but I'm glad you make the distinction that strike against Target began with Nakima and those folks in Minneapolis. My question, Niele, I won't put you on the spot unless you want to be on the spot. I'll let the chat answer. As a Black organization, would you be open to some sort of deal with Target, to perhaps sponsor you like the Essence Fest, or do business with at this point?
I think I'll speak. I think as this country is preparing for a second economic shutdown, it happened on Friday. It happened before, but then it happened on Friday in Minneapolis. You saw unions. You saw from teachers, doctors, nurses. You saw small businesses. They shut down. And now they're asking for a nationwide one on January 30th. So to your question, as we look at the state of this nation, and we look at what needs to be done, I would hope that if Target put money on the table, that there would be a discussion with the organizers of the boycott, and some institutional organizations to figure out the best way to handle this situation. I really would. I don't think that this is a one-man show at this time. And I think that I hope Jamal Bryant is seeing that we're stronger together. Because wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if him and Nakima and the other two people that were a part of it, and Tamika, they would all come out unified, but nobody can really grab it, right? Well, Nakima can, but Jamal Bryant is kind of, because he's not in control of this thing anymore. It's bigger than all of them.
Greer says she thinks Target is about to get back into the fray. And here's a question for the chat. Have you been back to Target in the last year? You said you haven't?
I have not. Oh, wait, I did. I went one time and I didn't buy anything. I went in there. It was Christmas time. No, it was Thanksgiving time. And I went to buy a Black-owned game. I wanted one of those 80s or 90s sing card games that were designed by a Black person, and I didn't have time. I went in there. They didn't have it, and I walked out. And that is the only time I've been back in Target since they called for the boycott. And I don't miss Target. I don't miss it at all. Wow. I don't miss it at all.
Nancy Wall and Orangey says no, and Dr. Nicole says nope, and don't really miss it either.
I don't miss it.
Gris, let's keep it real. And without going into too much details, I sat in on negotiations between Target and the NNPA. The first big one that lasted for about an hour and a half at the Eaton Hotel in Washington, D.C., the higher ups of Target and Dr. Ben Chavis, and all throughout the year in 2025, the rest of the year. It was May of 2025 when we had the meeting with the Target individuals, but the rest of the year, I wasn't privy to all of the negotiations, only some of them. And I will say that I wish that it was the deal that they ultimately have seemingly agreed upon was a whole lot more massive and more helpful to folks in the Black community who have suffered, and Nikema and others would have been invited to have those discussions with the NNPA.
All right, let's move on to the next story. The U.S. government is heading for a partial shutdown as Senate Democrats vow to oppose a funding package that includes appropriations for the Department of Homeland Security. Now, large portions of the government will shut down on Friday, and this is unless the Senate approves the funding package before then. Now, on Sunday, a person familiar with the Senate Republican leadership told CNBC that they will not remove the DHS funding portion despite that warning. And so, as we see here, we're on the brink of another shutdown because Republicans in the Senate don't see the need to rip funding from ICE.
Well, I think that folks are, those who went along with that are going to face some blowback. Again, we talked about the midterm elections. They're going to face blowback, Niele, from their constituents. They're no longer listening, both sides. Nobody's listening to their constituents anymore.
Yeah, everybody is just...
It's about survival.
Yeah, clearly on all fronts, it is about survival and people just going rogue. And they're standing, speaking of the Senate, they're standing unified in what they believe in. I don't know if they're scared of Trump, if they've been threatened by Stephen Miller. I don't know what the situation is, but I hope that this time Democrats hold the line. Because I think this will play well for them in the midterms. Because if all they do is show the faces of Keith Porter, Renee Good, and Alex Pretty, and say we will not allow another U.S. citizen or undocumented immigrant to be murdered, to be tortured at the hands of ICE. No money. That should be the Democrats' campaign. Right now, starting this week, we need to see, as the government, we're sorry the government has to shut down, but we have heard you, American people, no more. That should be their slogan. Let's go, Democrats.
And oftentimes, you notice when it comes time for elections, voters tend to have some bit of short-term memory. And I say that to say that something like this, you can't depend on that it'll carry for the next 8 months, but this is so severe that it certainly will carry. It seems like it will carry, and it's not going to stop though. That's the thing too. There's no sign that this is going to stop, and so to be so afraid of this administration. I'm talking about the Democrat and Republican senators, Democrat and Republican congresspeople on the Hill, is ridiculous because, again, it shows that you are not concerned with your constituents. Stand up for your constituents. That's what they say you're supposed to do.
Yeah, Nagin believes that he says Chuck Schumer will cave in. Well, we'll see. I hope that they hold the line. Just as it is unfathomable what they are doing in killing American citizens. So let's shut it down. I mean, let's just be just as, rogue. That's not even rogue. That's decency. That's saying the Democrats would be saying, we hear you, American people. We see that our humanity, everything that this country is supposed to stand for is on the line. And we're going to hold the line. We're not going to do it.
Dr. Nicole brings up a great point. She says, I think she's talking about the Republicans that I'm talking about with the constituents, and the Democrats too, for that matter. She said, I think it's about the stuff that they've been doing in the dark, because how could they possibly care about survival by alienating their voter base? I think she's right. There's so much that they've done and are doing in the dark that they never want to come out. And so they give people like Trump ammunition.
Right.
That's absolutely stuff that they're doing behind closed doors. If exposed, they're going to be in trouble anyway.
Right. So we'll see. Of course, this is going to be a story that we're going to cover all week, because as we get closer to Friday, we'll know if we're in another shutdown or not. But let's talk about some federal and state Black representation. Florida Rep Maxwell Frost was assaulted over the weekend at Sundance Film Festival.
Yes.
Now, Utah police have arrested Christian Young, who shouted that Frost would be deported before punching him. Now, Frost tweeted the incident, and House Leader Hakeem Jeffries condemned it, saying hate and political violence has no place in our country. So, 3 murders, and now elected officials are getting punched.
Isn't it something else? This is not, come on. This is not the America you knew even a year and a half ago, 11, 12, 13 months ago. Certainly not the America you knew, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. This is really wild stuff.
Right. Let's head to Florida, which is the state that Maxwell Frost represents. Florida Democratic State Rep Angie Nixon, who we've had on the show, announces she's going to challenge GOP U.S. Senator Ashley Moody. Now, Nixon was elected to the Florida House of Representatives in 2020. She's been outspoken against the governor's redistricting plan, and she sued the state after being denied access to South Florida Detention Center known as Alligator Alcatraz. Now, she also has introduced legislation that would require ICE and other law enforcement agents to unmask and identify themselves on the job. And she's running on affordable housing and, economic platform as to making, America affordable for Americans. And so you see Black leadership shifting seats and going after different seats. So we'll continue to follow her and hopefully get her on the show. Let's head to Tennessee, where State Rep Justin J. Pearson is seeking re-election to his District 86 seat in Tennessee. Now that's his capital seat, his state seat, as he challenges U.S. Rep Stephen Cohen in the August primary for the House of Representatives. So he's like, I'm going to run for my seat just in case I lose this House seat, but I'm going to take the lead. So I thought that was pretty interesting, Stacy.
I think it is pretty interesting. Yeah. Hey, these guys, so he and his colleague,
Justin
Jones, exactly, have been really fighting for, it's been a decade now? Seems like it's been a decade, fighting against the injustice there. And for a while, it was just them, and of course, Gloria, what's the last name? The other state rep, the white woman who has been a strong ally. And they have not given up. They continue to strive to be in position so they can be the voices of reason and perhaps the voices of change.
Mm-hmm. Let's head to Georgia, where one lawmaker in Georgia really loves lemon pepper, y'all.
Oh,
so
Lord.
Georgia State Rep Eric Bell has introduced legislation that would designate lemon pepper as the state of Georgia's official chicken wing flavor. Okay, so Bell says the idea grew out of a simple realization. Georgia already recognizes dozens of official symbols, and lemon pepper wings have become one of the state's most recognizable cultural staples. So, some lighthearted legislation going on in Georgia.
Battle over the wing.
You have the Georgia peach, which Atlanta housewives have taken over, and and hip hop culture has taken over. You know, the Atlanta peach and the derriere, it's all symbolic. So now he wants lemon pepper wings.
Oh gosh.
And he's young, you know, he's a young lawmaker. And this might fare for him well if he decides to run from another office, because all the young people will be talking about this.
Oh gosh. All righty then. Lemon pepper wings. What else you got for us?
I think the next story is yours.
Somebody said lemon pepper wings. Oh Lord. Well, how about this, Niele? I obviously I want the chat to chime in because this was a very interesting exchange that happened between Tracy Morgan. Was he out of pocket, folks? Let's take a look.
Always don't ask about taxes.
Taxes, he said.
Let's do it. William, what's up? What's up? I remember you, William. Don't talk to me like I owe you something. I didn't say that. Hey, boy, can I get something, please? No. When we was younger. Yeah, but I think I forgot. I'm homeless, boy. So what that got to do with me? I ain't do that. Oh, shit. Take care of my kids. Can I get a picture of my sister? The ones that ain't here. They always don't ask about taxes.
Taxes, he said.
So apparently Tracy remembered this unhoused guy from when they were younger, and apparently, according to Tracy, this guy used to pick on him, and now the guy's homeless. And he approached. That was outside of Madison Square Garden. Tracy's an avid Knicks fan. He goes to just about every game, and he said he had no food. He was homeless, and you saw Tracy Morgan's response. What does that have to do with me? You know, he remembered when he used to pick on him. So. Was Tracy out of pocket?
I mean, I think it's his choice, you know.
It is his choice.
Yeah, it's his choice. And, you know, nobody knows the trauma that man put on him as a child, you know, and that was his payback. That's how I feel about
it. Wow, that's, you know, I don't know how further back in the past they go, but he said when he was young, the guy used to pick on him. That's a long time to hold a grudge, Tracy. But like you said, I have no idea what happened. It's not explained there. It's not enough time to explain it there. But come on, give the brother a couple of bucks. Give him $5 at least. Give him a Happy Meal. Golly. Megan 11 said nope. Tracy had bad memories of that guy. He was somebody says, I don't know if he handled it correctly. Michael Carter. However, karma has a way of coming back. Patricia Jackson says, no, he picked on him and owes him nothing. And Nancy Wall says, life choices. RG says, I don't forgive or forget. I have a list of people who better pray I don't see them in my lifetime. So, hey, Tracy's not alone.
And there you have it. All right. So yesterday, the final games before the Super Bowl were played in cold weather, but the lineup is official. The New England Patriots will play the Seattle Seahawks at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California. Bad Boy Bunny will do the halftime show. Coco Jones will sing Lift Every Voice and Sing. And Trump says he will not be attending, and I think that's going to make a lot of people happy.
Well, I mean, he should be tired of getting booed at these events too. So it can't be pleasurable when you got 80,000 people booing you. But those games yesterday, I had got such a kick out of the Denver Broncos and the New England Patriots game because it started off, and first of all, game wise, I knew. I kept saying Denver has every opportunity in that first quarter to blow this thing open. It's 7-0, 7-0. And then it became 7-7. And Denver kept failing. They've missed some field goals. But then here's the great part of it all. The snow, the blizzard came. And once that blizzard hit and New England had went up 10-7, which was the final score, nobody was going to score again. It had to take a bonehead play or a huge mishap for anybody to score in those conditions. It was hilarious to see these great athletes just looked like little kids out there trying to find their way, because that's what they were trying. And then during the play, you had a stadium crew behind the play trying to clean off some of the snow, but the wind was blowing the snow everywhere. It was a delight to see. I know folks are complaining, oh, this is why you got Super Bowls at neutral sites, so you don't have that, but you should have the championship games at neutral sites. I totally disagree. Football is a winter sport. These guys always man up. And I don't think either side was complaining about the weather. They just wanted to execute. And they knew that the ability to execute had been severely limited. And so it was like, hey, let's do our best. Let's see what happens. But that was a fun game to watch. And the other game, the Rams game against the Seahawks, I was kind of at the end, I was kind of pulling for the Rams. Why? Because I can't think of the player's name. All of a sudden, his name escaped me. But that taunting penalty was so out of control, was so ridiculous. The referee warned him 2 or 3 times before he actually threw the flag, which turned into a Rams touchdown, and they pulled the win 31-27, which was the final score too. But his teammates, I love to see it. They got in his face on the sidelines, and you can't do that. You're a professional football player. You're at the highest level here in the championship game, and you pull a stunt that nearly cost your team a trip to the Super Bowl. It would have been unforgivable. It was a great weekend for the NFL.
Well, I know one of the headlines is Cardi B.
Cardi B got interviewed too.
No, Cardi B is going to the Super Bowl, and yes, we saw that.
She got interviewed. I love it.
Another important thing that happened over the weekend was Richard Smallwood's celebration of life was held in Maryland. Governor Wes Moore, Greer, do we have that queued up? Can we get that queued up? I put it in the chat. I put it in the email.
You're my laughter. That shelters all my fears. When I'm alone, your hand is there to hold. Jesus, you're the center of my joy. All that's good and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my salvation, hope for all that's true. Jesus, you're the center of my joy. God bless you, Richard. Rest in well-deserved peace. To the Smallwood family, we love you. And I love you back. To the entire family, on behalf of we can rely on.
So that was, of course, Governor Wes Moore, who attended Richard Smallwood's funeral. And his celebration of life was beautiful. I mean, there were clips going around all social media. Felicia Rashad had beautiful words and lessons about Sir Richard at their time when they were at Howard University together, and a historic moment that happened. If you want to watch that, you can go to my Instagram page. That Felicia Rashad tribute is there. And Marette Brown, very popular gospel singer. She led Angels, which was a popular song by Richard Smallwood. And of course, Donald Lawrence led the choirs. I mean, it was such a fitting tribute for someone that contributed so much to the gospel music experience. When you think about contemporary gospel, when you think about choirs, when you think about harmony, when you think about alto, soprano, tenor, bass, he was the one that would execute it, and that people like Donald Lawrence and Hezekiah Walker lived up to. So to see him honored in such a way and see so many tributes over the weekend pour in for Sir Richard Smallwood, as Felicia Rashad said. It was just a beautiful thing.
All right.
Yeah. So that was what happened in Black Church this weekend. It was all about Richard Smallwood.
Okay. Well, Westmore pulling a Barack Obama, huh? You know, Barack famously saying Al Green's "Let's Stay Together," right? So
I thought it was a gospel. Okay.
No, it was Al Green. He sang Barack saying no. He also sang a gospel song too. You're right. It on another wherever he was.
It was at another funeral.
It was Amazing Grace. It was Amazing Grace.
It was Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
And I thought that the same thing came to mind. I was like, oh
yeah.
No.
But if you a churchgoer, politicians come all the time to church and do that. You know, it's just that Obama gave us an insight of things that happen when politicians come.
It's always bizarre. Politicians in church. It's just a bizarre thought. That's all for me.
Bizarre for who? Oh, for you. Okay.
Yeah. Church and state thing. I don't know.
You know, when Obama did that, I think the thing that some people probably were surprised that he knew the words.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so.
I don't think a lot of people, because Barack Obama came from Jeremiah Wright's church.
No, I'm not talking about everybody else.
Are you talking about the white folks? Oh, okay, I'm saying. Well, I was just talking.
Right, I would say the larger culture, because it's like, you know, people forget. You know, I think just like with Michael Jackson, people forgot that, because when someone's star is so big and they're Black and they're mainstream, they forget that they are Black, right? And that they are part of culture, right? So when people were hearing him, I mean, of course, the people in the church, they enjoyed it, and yes, they used to having politicians come into, to that space. But I think that people were forgetting that this man is a Black man. He sang Amazing Grace. Yeah, he knew the words and he had the tone and the whole bit. I think that people forgot.
Yeah, I think she's right. I think that when we see these folks reach a certain status, there's a portion of the world who forgets. Let's
not forget Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace was written by a white man who went to Africa and brought slaves to the United States and to Europe. And so that song, Amazing Grace, if you didn't know, I can't remember his name, but there's a movie about him. And that, if you think Amazing Grace, how sweet that sounds, that saved a wretch like me. And he's talking about it from being a slave catcher in Africa's perspective. So when you go back and listen to those lyrics, understand that's coming from a white man who used to go to Africa and bring slaves over to the United States and to Europe. And those lyrics will ring a little different and be like, oh, that's what he meant.
Yeah, listen, half of the population in this country don't even know why the Civil War was started. So, you know.
There's that part, right? She ain't lying.
No, Thomas Dorsey didn't write Amazing Grace. Thomas Dorsey is the great conductor of Precious Lord, Take My Hand. And we've come this far. What's one of my favorite hymns? But it wasn't Thomas Dorsey. It's a white man named, and I'll tell you right now who it was as we talk about it. Stacy, go ahead with the Black fact, and I'm gonna get you his name.
You're gonna get us the name? Okay, so we got a Black fact for you. Got a couple, I guess. On this date, folks, back in 1863, the U.S. War Department, as it was called then, and now it's called it again, authorized the governor of Massachusetts to recruit Black troops to the Union Army. Since the early days of the Civil War, African Americans had joined the Union's military in unofficial capacities, but a 1792 federal law had prohibited them from formally enlisting. But that changed in 1863 as the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center notes. Frederick Douglass and other prominent African Americans petitioned Congress and President Lincoln to allow African American men to enlist in the military. So some serious Black facts from 1863.
Yeah. His name was John Newton. John
Oh,
Newton wrote Amazing Grace. And yeah. Yeah.
John Newton. All right.
And that other song by Thomas Dorsey, it came to my mind, for he knows just how much you can bear. Yeah, Thomas Dorsey is the Black conductor. Mahalia Jackson worked with him. Great conductor for gospel music. But on this day, I had to change Greer my Black history fact. It was about today, the Apollo Open, but I have to take it to 6 years ago today. We lost Kobe Bryant, Gigi Bryant, and a plane full of other names that died on a cold, foggy day in Los Angeles. It'll never be forgotten. This day, it was like when Nipsey Hussle died. It's like a moment in time. It was a Sunday. It was a moment in time you'll never forget. So, of course, we'll be celebrating here in LA the life and legacy of Kobe Bryant and the Mamba way.
Yeah, I remember just getting off a plane. We were coming from one of the NMPA's conferences, and I got a call that Kobe, I thought I was hearing it wrong, that there was this plane crash or whatever. I was at the Philadelphia airport, in fact, and it was like, huh? Okay, let me check it out once I get settled. And it was like, no, this is what did you say? He said Kobe Bryant. I said, wow. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned, and you had to go and write that story, but it was it was a sad day, and knowing, like you said, his daughter was on that helicopter, as well as another family was on that helicopter as well. And then the aftermath, where Vanessa Bryant had to file suit against officials in LA,
the sheriff's department.
The sheriff's department. To have to go through that, and then to be let down in that way by law enforcement, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, it was a very sad time in LA. I mean, it was just it's gut-wrenching. I was able to attend the funeral and cover it for the LA Sentinel, and it was just a lot of people didn't really understand the Kobe Bryant phenomenon, like myself included. Being from LA, you kind of take it for granted, but just how much he contributed, not just to basketball, but to the culture. And just, what he was beginning to do for females in basketball. All of the hype and all the excitement that I have and that we have, he started that motion. And then you just think about Gigi wanting to go to UConn, and thinking about Paige Becker is coming out of there. You got Ozzy, and she would just be in the mix of all that right now. It's just tragic to lose somebody like that, that did so much. Just last week, the Lakers were celebrating, was the game where he did 81 points. That was just last week. And so just to remember him. So this week for LA, it's going to be very impactful. Everything leading up to the funeral. It's just going to be all over the place right now about Kobe Bryant, and rightfully so.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about. Orange G, he says he'll never forget the Neanderthals that took the pictures of the bodies and shared them around like trading cards. That was just awful. How could that thought pop into your head in that particular moment? My gosh.
Mamba mentality forever. Mamba.
Yeah. And the debate goes on. As Kobe is always mentioned among Jordan and LeBron, when folks talk about the greatest, I think the greatest got his tribute. To me, the greatest got his tribute the other day in Philadelphia again. They did a montage of Dr. J, incredible stuff. And he was at a game between the Sixers and the Rockets and got, of course, the customary standing ovation. I think Dr. J was simply the greatest.
Yeah, Jalen Rose was also celebrated in Chicago last week as they retired his jersey. But I don't think that there has ever been a basketball player to have two jerseys. retired. And
Kobe did that. Yep, I was going to say. Yep, Kobe did that.
That's what I'm saying. That nobody has had 2 jerseys retired. 8 and 24.
Yeah, yes, same team though. So I'm not gonna go too much into putting a whole lot into that. Same team. If he went to another team and got his jersey retired over there too, not to take anything away from Kobe, we know how great he was. The 81 points, man, I remember the 81 points. It was like, and folks will say, "Oh, you're chasing these points." That he was not. It was one of those things where he was, when they say locked in. Oh my gosh. If you go back and look at that game, this guy was locked in from the moment he took warm-ups. He was locked in. He was unstoppable. And I had not even seen, and I'm not saying he's better than Michael Jordan. I wouldn't say Jordan is better than him, but I had never seen anybody, including Michael Jordan, locked in the way he was that night. And, well, who did they play that night? Was it Denver?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I believe it was Denver. Yeah, D. Jenkins, he was absolutely locked in. And, you understood that night. If you didn't before, you understood the whole Mamba thing. Because, this guy was deadly all night and never let up. You get guys who go on a scoring bench, they get a little tired, they sit. And Kobe was just from end to end. And he played defense, too. He played defense as well. So it wasn't like he was just looking to score. He played both ends. So, man, that was one of the greatest performances I'd ever seen.
Yeah, Shaq told him there's no I in team, but Kobe told him, but there's an I in win, mother.
Oh.
That's what he told him, but there's an I in win. And on that note, stay locked in. That was a word you used in some of our Let It Be Known commentators in the chat. Locked in. So we encourage you to stay locked in to Black Press USA. We're also following Georgia Ford, Tucson Morrison, and tracking boots on the ground information coming out of Minneapolis. So all you have to do is follow all of our social handles at Black Press USA. Also follow Let It Be Known because we're one family. So that's BlackPressUSA.com. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Have a good one.